Sonic, check out this photo I found on the internet.
Skarmory's always been a really cool Pokemon with very solid intergenerational success overall. It goes without saying that a steel-flying Pokemon with longevity, immense physical bulk, and a sizable utility move pool will always have a niche somewhere somehow. In singles, anyway. VGC is a bit of a different story, as it always has been famed for fast-paced games and single game-defining turns. Pokemon like Skarmory and Toxapex, as dedicated defensive pillars often involved in facilitating passive chip damage through hazards or status, have always been more suited to singles, which is a more slow-paced, footsies-based environment. When Pokemon Legends ZA dropped, we were introduced to a myriad of new Mega Evolutions. A lot of them brought new life to Pokemon, either not well considered or in desperate need of some kind of buff. Well, for the most part. However, a Pokemon I was extremely happy to see, other than Delphox of course, get a Mega Evolution was Skarmory. Given what we said about Skarmory before, its stat line was a very pleasant surprise to me. Mega Skarmory leans far more into offense. Sacrificing some physical bulk, it gains a more balanced defensive profile overall, which is a nice compliment for its resistance profile, and is fine and good. But, it notably gets a giant surge to its attack and speed stats. We have to consider two factors unique to Skarmory to understand why this angle is so compelling. The first factor is its offensive move pool. I'm sure those uninitiated may be wondering what this looks like. Yeah, this wall can do some damage. Second, its pre-Mega abilities are extremely useful for a Mega Evolution designed around this kind of offensive pressure. Weak Armor is an ability that grants +2 speed at the cost of -1 defense when hit by any physical move. Guess what Skarmory's base form is really good at? It takes stray physical moves like a... Use that speed to force them out, click Swords Dance on the Switch, and get some wall breaking done, assuming there's no priority to worry about. Outside of singles, weak armor is really helpful too, as you can then get an extremely fast tailwind off of these predicted attacks, which can be immensely useful for teammates like Basculegion and Garchomp. Alternatively, Sturdy is quite helpful in VGC, as it can let Skarmory more safely secure a tailwind in more aggressive matchups if you don't want to predict in them. So, all of this seems promising on paper. So, what about its ability? Surely it's something that's actually going to be really helpful? Oh. Well, that's not a great sign for singles. But truthfully, it's not that bad, as having a useless ability after weak armor activation is better than keeping weak armor after being set up. You have to consider this thing as still an offensive behemoth that is based on Skarmory, letting it find some defensive value here and there after all. For VGC, what if I told you Stalwart is actually an incredibly cool addition? Rage Powder and most Follow Me users like the Clefable line and the currently unimplemented Ogerpon gets utterly smashed by a Brave Bird, which is pretty nice on its own, especially since it can switch in on them most of the time with its typing. However, Common Redirection partners are also really not a fan of its base 140 attack stab boosted Brave Bird, so it applies a lot of pressure to the two sitting Pokemon on the field more often than not. You may be wondering though, what exactly does this mean? Well, bulky strong sweepers with redirection support are really annoying hugely because even if you do ultimately win the interaction, you don't ever really gain positive tempo from it. They'll just do too much damage to you and clean up what's left of your team, which to me is part of what makes Calm Mind Protect the Queen-styled Floette composition so strong, at least at the time of making this video. Mega Skarmory's entire offensive and defensive profile is designed to take advantage of this kind of game plan by letting you convert a defensive situation that's difficult to flip momentum from into one that is extremely beneficial for you. Even if you don't outright beat the redirection partner, the threat of Stalwart to force undesirable damage into them while actively scaring the redirection Pokemon can give you a lot of leverage. They might want to click Protect, for example, to be safe from your Skarmory, but you can always safely attack the redirection partner with Skarmory and have more leeway to attack the redirection partner with your other Pokemon. Even if they do decide to redirect, it will still be able to secure that desired damage at absolute worst. You'll pretty much always be able to swing momentum toward you out of the turn if your Stalwart user threatens the redirection Pokemon, and you can get meaningful chip on the partner. I find that very interesting. Mega Skarmory is perfectly positioned to obliterate them or at least force them out, which I think is extremely hard to do, much less with a single Pokemon. At the end of the day, Steel Flying offensively and defensively really messes with a lot of common redirection users and redirection partners. And, on top of all of this, it can still be a useful defensive pillar. And it can force trades. And it can set Tailwind quite reliably thanks to its defensive typing, pre-Mega bulk, and its pre-Mega abilities. And it can do all these things to be useful in other kinds of matchups and be a competent secondary Mega. Granted, Regulation MA is about to end as of the time of writing and editing this video. Skarmory to me is well suited to take advantage of this format, and I find it criminally underrated for how well it matches into most of the big six of this format. It's very possible that it loses what makes its niche so interesting in Regulation MB and onward, but truthfully, I think it'll always have at least something to do. At least you can count on me to bring it when I inevitably begin competing. That's right, baby. The Ozma VGC era has begun.